Patricia Sheldon is a colleague of mine, and she tells the story of making a major move across the country. She had a young daughter at the time and had been telling her daughter of all of the wonderful things that were awaiting them in their new home. When she arrived at the new house, she enthusiastically showed her daughter the bright new kitchen and where their bedrooms would be, and even where her daughter would get to keep her toys. And then they looked out the window, and she told her little girl of how nice all the neighbors looked and how wonderful it will be to make new friends on this street. Then she asked her daughter what she thought. Her daughter's face contorted. She crossed her arms and said, "I hate it. You know I don't like change." And then she burst into tears. From the mouths of babes, the honesty, the wisdom. Who does like change? Actually, somebody came up to me right before the service and said, "I really like change." So there's at least one person here there's two people here who really like change, but nonetheless, theoretically, I can appreciate change. I love the tradition of Buddhism with its teachings on impermanence. Life is like the waves that wash up on the beach and then recede. Each moment a new moment. Life is like a river. You can never step into the same one twice. Life is like a box of chocolates. Oh, wait, that's not Buddhism. Anyway, I like all of those good and wonderful teachings about change. When they are put into abstraction, there's something beautiful and even reassuring about them. I also appreciate the theological lessons from Hinduism about change. There you have the Trimurti, the triune of gods, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Brahma is the creator, the God that brought everything into being. Vishnu is the sustainer. He is the energy that courses through the universe, keeping everything going. One devotee said, Brahma is like the person who assembled the watch, and Vishnu is like the battery that keeps it running. But the thing is, those are not the only two gods. There's also another god. There is Shiva, the destroyer. He is like the person who disassembles the old watch, maybe even by violently smashing it, so that something new can come in its place. Hinduism teaches that we need all three, the creator, the sustainer, and also the destroyer. Without any of them, the world would not turn. So theoretically and theologically, I can appreciate change. But practically, I remain like Patricia Sheldon's daughter. Whenever the universe throws something new my way, I want to cross my arms and indignantly proclaim, "I told you I don't like change." In fact, back when I was a chaplain intern at a hospital, my fellow ministerial students and I developed a code for this. My cohorts and I would spend hours reflecting on our responses to pastoral situations as they emerged with the patients in the hospital. Often we would learn something new about ourselves in the course of those conversations, something that may not be the most pleasant or the easiest to deal with. We learned we had to change the way that we think or act or understand things. And so we came up with the term ADGO, another damn growth opportunity. That's right, yes. So why don't we like change? What is so painful about it? There's a children's story that I'd like to tell this morning. It is by Gene Willis, and fair warning, it's a weird one. I had actually picked it up because I thought it would be a hopeful way to communicate endings and beginnings during some future story for all ages. But instead, it has an ending that is far from hopeful or pleasant. Online, readers have exclaimed that they cannot understand why such a story was written in the first place. Another person said it is entirely inappropriate for children. I thought, wow, this is something that could never make its way into a Sunday service, which is, of course, why I'm about to read it. Bear with me, because in the wake of its bewildering storyline, it does have something important to tell us about change. It's called The Tadpole's Promise. Where the willow meets the water, a tadpole met a caterpillar. They gazed into each other's tiny eyes, and they fell in love. She was a beautiful rainbow, and he was her tiny black pearl. I love everything about you, said the caterpillar. Promise me that you'll never change. I promise, he said. But as sure as the weather changes, the tadpole could not keep his promise. The next time that they met, he had grown 2 legs. You've broken your promise, said the caterpillar. Forgive me, begged the tadpole. I couldn't help it. I don't want these legs. All I want is my beautiful rainbow. And all I want is my shiny black pearl. Promise me you'll never change, said the caterpillar. I promise, he said back. But sure as the seasons changed, the next time they met, he had grown arms. That's twice that you've broken your promise, cried the caterpillar. Forgive me, begged the tadpole. I couldn't help it. I don't want these arms. All I want is my beautiful rainbow. And all I want is my shiny black pearl. I'll give you one last chance, said the caterpillar. But as surely as the world changes, the tadpole could not keep his promise. The next time they met, he had no tail. You have broken your promise 3 times, said the caterpillar, and now you have broken my heart too. But you are my beautiful rainbow, said the tadpole. Yes, but you are no longer my shiny black pearl. Goodbye. And she climbed to the top of her willow branch and cried herself to sleep. One warm, moonlit night, she woke up. The sky had changed. The trees had changed. Everything had changed, except for her love for the tadpole. Even though he had broken his promise, she decided to forgive him. And when she moved, she realized that she too had changed. She had wings. She dried them and fluttered down to look for him. I think some of you might know where this is headed. And where the willow meets the water, a frog was sitting on his lily pad. Excuse me, she said, have you seen my shiny black? But faster than she could say pearl, the frog leapt up and swallowed her in one great gulp. And there he waits, thinking fondly of his beautiful rainbow, wondering where she went. The end. The end. So now here's the thing. The reviewers on Amazon tried to find a moral to this story, something like you'd find in Aesop's fables. Something like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, or a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Those who looked for such a thing were disappointed and gave the book a 1-star rating. And there were lots of 1-star ratings for this book. I think that's because the story doesn't communicate a moral. I think it instead reflects our fears of change. We fear that if those in our lives change, they will not know us and we will not be recognized. We fear that if our circumstances shift, we will not be safe or secure. We fear that the change will swallow us up and destroy us, just like it did the caterpillar. But I want to say this morning that those are fears, and those fears do not line up neatly with reality. Instead, I think that we have lots of evidence that change is not only a bad thing, but it's also a vehicle for our growth. It's the container for our deepest lessons, and it often forms the parts of ourselves that we most like and appreciate. If you think about your own most formative experiences, the experiences that shaped you, that changed you, how many of them kept you safe and neatly the same? Probably not many. Most of the time, what shapes us also changes us. And it does not necessarily feel good or secure in the moment that it is doing that. I'm reminded of something that one of my high school teachers used to say, something that I've never quite forgotten, but I just love it. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's bad. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's bad. Now, when I first made the decision to leave Livermore and take the risk to come to this new ministry in Deerfield, it threw my whole world off kilter. At first, I felt this incredible rush of excitement at the prospect of a new call in a new place with a new wonderful group of people. And then I felt discomfort, and then I felt fear. What if I was giving up the only place where I was safe and secure? What if I was losing all of the friends that I cared about, and I would not find any when I reached my new destination? Those fears gripped me for some time. Some days I felt not only the potential of being swallowed up by the change, but I felt that I was already in the frog's stomach. As I was packing up my office in Livermore and feeling this profound sadness and fear of letting all of that go, a book fell from the top shelf. It was a book by C.S. Lewis, an author that I do not readily turn to when I'm looking for spiritual advice, I admit that. I think his words are beautifully written, but mostly too orthodox for my tastes. But with boxes half packed all around me and this book lying there at my feet, I decided to sit down and take a moment. I started skimming through the book, and I quickly turned to a passage about a transition that the author was going through. In that section, he describes having the crippling feeling that everything was changing and that nothing would be okay from that point forward. The voice was loud. In fact, it was drowning out everything else. He felt off-center and out of balance. But at some point, there came an internal shift. It was like a door that had been shut for some time inside of him began to open up. And he found that he needed to stay with that door, that through that door that opened up internally, he began to find some peace. He was able to begin to trust. It was like another voice came through that door and said, "You are going to be okay. You are exactly where you need to be right now." That passage, that reminder that I am exactly where I need to be right now, it was a small comfort, but it was enough. and I am so glad that it was. Because having been out here in Deerfield for over a year now, I know that voice was true. I found a new life and new friends and a partner, and it was all because I discovered just enough trust to tip the balance away from the fear. Thank God I did, because staying just as you are, never changing, never taking a risk, never saying yes to something new, that might be just as painful, just as deadly, just as likely to land you in the frog's belly. We have to keep growing. We have to keep changing. We have to find somewhere that source of trust that allows us to open into the new. My spiritual companions, amen. I love you, and may you find the trust that allows you to enter into the new.